All right, we are live. Happy Friday, everybody. Hope you guys are doing good and hopefully you got big plans for the weekend. I don't really have much going on. I'll probably be filming a lot of videos, but yeah. So today, what I want to do is I want to talk to you about something that's been on my mind this week. I've been kind of just refocusing on some of this stuff. It's like I've been wanting to be a little bit more efficient, more effective with my time. And today, what I want to do is I want to share with you something that I've discovered that's really, I think is going to help take my content creation process to, or not just content creation, but really just creative process in general to the next level. Because I'm going to apply this to content creation, but I'm also going to apply the same concept to photography and videography. And so I don't want to ramble along too much, but there were some things that I've just been thinking about that has there's a lot of things in this world that kind of can distract and take away from your creative process. And so, what this system that I'm going to talk about here in just a second will do is it's going to help you systematize essentially your creative process so that way it doesn't seem like so much of a daunting thing. Like for me, I'll give you the example of when it comes to creating a YouTube video, it starts with coming up with an idea and then validating whether or not that idea is actually good by determining whether or not I can come up with a title and thumbnail for the video that you guys are actually going to be interested in or that you would click on. And or it needs to be something that is interesting. At least that's what everyone tells you, right? Well, in this video, again, I'm going to talk about this process. It's going to help you come up with some of your best ideas and help you come up with concepts and things that are creative that you are actually going to be, I think you'll actually have some creative satisfaction from. But without further ado, let's go ahead and get into the meat and potatoes of the video. So this is the missing ingredient in what I'm calling, or this is what I'm calling the missing ingredient in your creative process. And so the reason why I'm calling it the missing ingredient is because it was my missing ingredient. And it's something that I don't know that I don't necessarily get talked about on YouTube that much. So this is something that I wanted to share with you today. And let's just figure out what's going on here. Okay, we're good. All right. So this guy here, Graham Wallace, he was a psychologist. I think it was back in like 1815 or something like that. It's like the 1800s. This guy's been around for his concept or this model has been around for a long time. This is the model, his model for creativity. And well, why is this important? Well, this system essentially is one that is a lot of creative processes or little templates or formats, whatever you want to call it, they've been based upon. And so thinking from first principles, this is the closest that I was able to get so far. There's probably some more that are out there. And as I continue to try to discover more ways of being more creative, I will continue to share that with you all. But this is his system. And so what we're going to do is we're going to dive into the system and I'm going to share with you how it's going to help enhance your creativity. And this applies to all aspects of life. This doesn't just mean like creating YouTube videos. This could be learning to play an instrument, or this could be anything that's creative. So Wallace believed that creativity is typically purposeful and not done on accident. So it looks at creativity as a process, not an event. And so with that being said, it's meaning like, I know, at least for me, when I first saw this, I was like, well, what about those moments of like spontaneity whenever you just have an idea come to your head? And I'm going to talk about that in his system as well. So he believed also that it involves intentionality and process rather than being a single moment of inspiration or a random accident. Again, that random accident being something that just doesn't happen out of thin air. So let's start with the very first step in the process, and that is preparation. So that's when you learn from others, gather knowledge, research, and explore ideas. We all do this whenever we consume YouTube videos, and we're researching content. For me, this has been extremely beneficial because where do we get most of our information nowadays? It's not just from books, but it's also from getting it online. So whether that's listening to podcasts, YouTube videos, or watching short form content. But this just builds the knowledge and understanding and foundation needed to generate, develop, and refine creative ideas effectively. So essentially what you're doing here is you're gathering raw materials about the specific. Let's just give you an example because that may make it a little bit easier to understand. Let's say that I am like, there's a new camera that's coming out and I want to learn more about this camera. So I might go look at different blogs, or I may look at the actual manufacturer's website, or I may also just look at other YouTube videos and get some ideas around that specific thing. And this applies, you can apply this to other aspects for creating YouTube videos. If you're looking for video ideas of something in your niche, then you just go and you're going to consume content so you can we do this with anything. Like if we want to learn a new skill, we gather in information to better understand what that specific thing is. Then that moves into the incubation period. Well, there's a certain point. This is when we need to let ideas sit in the background while your mind unconsciously processes them. Now, I think this is probably one of the most important, at least in 2025, because we live in such a distracting world these days. For me, and I say for anyone that has ever, I remember whenever I was a kid and this was like before I had a phone, before I really played video games, that probably ages me. But I mean, I guess video games have been around a long time, but before Xbox and PlayStation 3 and everything like that, what did I do whenever I was bored? I had to go outside and I had to just go outside and play with friends and things like that. Well, as an adult, I still make this mistake is the moment that I feel bored, if there's something, maybe I'm on my drive to work or I'm standing in line at a coffee shop or something. The moment that I experience boredom, I immediately pull out my phone and try to consume some content. And I don't want to I don't want to make this too in-depth and everything like that, but I really think this is important because you hear all the time, you hear dopamine detox and social media detox and everything like that. But really, why is that important? Well, how does that pertain to this theory here? And the incubation period is where you allow those ideas. If you don't actually allow those ideas time to further develop in your unconscious, then you don't actually give yourself the opportunity for those ideas to come to the forefront. So in the incubation period, Steve Jobs did this, Albert Einstein did this, and Steve Jobs would, he would take walks where he would just go and he would think about problems or think about new ideas deeply. And Einstein would do this by spending long hours in solitude. Now you can do this through, taking a break or actually unplugging, doing meditation if you like, sleeping, getting good sleep, engaging in a different activity. So instead of just focusing on the creative thing that you're doing, do something completely different from that thing. And sometimes that's going to lead to what'll be the next step, which you can probably assume what it is. But without giving it away, there's more to the next step, or just completely change your environment. And with that incubation period, that just allows you time to just kind of decompress from the thing. Because for me, I'll get into and my greatest form of procrastination has just been consumption and wanting to learn. And that's a been a big problem for me because as a part-time YouTuber, I feel like I'm behind the power curve when it comes to creating content because there's other people that are full-time creators, and that's eventually what would be the goal of the long term would be to be a full-time creator one day. And so with that, I'm always trying to educate myself on all these different things, but I forget that I need to take a break from consuming content. Like what I'm doing, I think we all do this. You're not, scrolling through short form content all the time with the thoughts that we're going to be doing something bad. It's because something piques our interest. We have, creates curiosity, and then we just, before we know it, an hour goes by and we're just kind of caught up in this, this spiral. And so setting intention or being intentional with actually taking time to unplug is extremely important, because if you feel like ideas aren't coming to you, this was the big one for me. If you don't feel like ideas are coming to you and you just kind of experiencing some creative block, take some time. I know it sounds like common sense and you hear it all the time, but go out, take a walk in nature. Don't get on your phone. Don't talk on your phone. Don't put music in your ear. Just actually go out. You can have your phone with you if you need it, but just go out and go on a walk. Or when you're driving to work, like instead of listening to a podcast or listening to an audiobook, which I still do, I'm not perfect at this, but just drive to work without listening to I know it sounds terrible, but this is an opportunity for your mind to just kind of wander, and for those ideas, you're just desensitizing and you're not being overstimulated all the time. I think that's really what I'm trying to say, is like you don't want to overstimulate yourself. All right. What that leads to is the illumination. This is the aha moment when a creative idea typically emerges. Now, you're starting to see here, this kind of a system so far of like, this is a technique, or there's a book actually on this. It's not, this guy didn't specifically write this book, but there's a book out there called A Technique for Producing Ideas. Let me see if I can pull it up on my Kindle app real quick. But A Technique for Producing Ideas it's a great book. If you haven't read it, here, I have it pulled up right here in my Kindle app. But yeah, I love, I read this book. It's been a few years ago now. But it's just like a great system for being able to help you. I don't know if you can see that up on the screen, but yeah, Technique for Producing Ideas. It's a great book for just coming. It follows a similar process. So you start off consuming information, gathering raw materials, then you take a break, and then the next, during that break, the aha moment should appear, and that's what we're at now. Is the aha moment creates that a creative idea. And this allows for new ideas and solutions to arise when not possible through linear problem solving. So if you're anything like me, maybe you've taken the time to sit there and you're like trying to just pump out an idea, and you can't seem to come up with anything. And so a lot of, what's been really helpful for me is just to take that break. And eventually, this is whenever ideas come to you, whenever you're in the shower or whenever you wake up in the middle of the night and you randomly have this random idea. So this is that illumination period. So for this, I would recommend also is to always write down your idea sooner than later. Have some sort of, put it on your phone or put it on like a piece of paper or something, to have a notebook by your bed or something like that. But really important to write this down. That way you don't forget about it, because you will, especially in the middle of the night. There's been too many times I've had ideas and then I sit there and try to, remember it, and I can't. So write those ideas down. And hold on one second. Let's see. Yeah, and this helps when breaking through obstacles where logical thinking alone may fail. Again, this is, look at guys like Einstein and Steve Jobs. They took intentional breaks to break away from what they were working on so that they could, come up with new ideas. And so it's important to have that rest period so that you can have time for new ideas to come to. And this can happen with just interactions. Let's say you're coming up with working on a YouTube video. And then you're like, okay, you've been working for hours and hours and hours. And you're like, okay, I need to stop. And then you decide that you're going to go out with your friends for a little while. Some of the interactions that you have with your friends, or if you go out and maybe you go to a bar or something like that, and you're just hanging out, like some of the interactions that you have with people through conversation, those things can, create new ideas. And that's that illumination factor. And then, so yeah, it's the result of incubation. So next we have verification. Well, this is the testing, refining, and developing phase of the, developing the idea into something meaningful. So once you have the idea, this is where you're going to test it. So this verification ensures that an idea is practical, impactful, and high quality by identifying weaknesses, refining strengths, and making necessary improvements before implementation. So what this is doing is just validating that idea. Is it a good idea? Like scrutinizing it really in making sure that it's not just some random half-thought idea, that is something that's going to be good. And well, how does this apply to like creativity? This is the part where you take that idea and you go out and you start testing and applying what you thought of. And so apply the idea in real world situations, like I said, and seek feedback from others, assess the strengths and weaknesses, and make adjustments based on feedback. So again, that was really quickly going through this process. Again, I should have put a summary on here, but we have preparation, incubation. So preparation being that you're consuming raw materials. Incubation is going to be taking a break. Illumination is whenever that aha moment comes from taking that good break. And this is actually taking a break. This doesn't mean like working on stuff on the side. This means like actually taking a break in what you're doing and do something completely different. And then verification, and that's the testing of the idea. Again, I hope that was helpful. I want to take some time. If you have any questions, please let me know. If you're watching on the replay, thank you so much for being here. Leave a comment down in the chat if this was helpful. Again, I want to do some Q&A though. Leave your comments down in leave your comments below if you're watching on the replay, or throw your questions down in the chat if you have any questions about anything. Matt says, thank you. Absolutely. Thank you for hopping on the stream, man. Again, this was something that was super helpful for me, because I would be honest with you, I completely glossed over the incubation phase. And it sounds super obvious, because you talk to anybody, they're like, dude, you need to take a break from what you're doing. And if you're anything like me, I feel like if I just maximize the amount of inputs, that like how much work that I'm doing, that'll show itself in the outputs. Like the results will be good because I'm putting in the work. But there's sometimes where you're putting in so much reps or so much work that you're actually, the law of diminishing returns actually applies. So again, I hope this was helpful. If you guys don't have any questions, I don't want to take up too much of your time, but again, this was something that was completely blew my mind whenever I heard it. Some of you may have even heard of this theory before. This is something I think gets taught like whenever you're young. So they teach this to young people to help them like better understand creativity and understand the creative process. But this is something that still applies, I feel like, to this day. And it's something that I'm going to definitely be incorporating more into my workflow. So if you guys don't have any questions, I hope you guys have a great weekend, and I'll see you in the next one. All right. Peace, guys.